2024 Middle Income Down Payment Assistance, or MDPA Program webinar. We would like to remind those who have joined us today that this webinar is intended only for bank members and representatives of community organizations. This event is not appropriate for home buyers or the general public. Here's our agenda for today. First, we'll provide an introduction to the Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco. Then, we'll give a summary of the MDPA program. We'll then talk about program participation and how members can get started. Next, we'll discuss the income eligibility requirement for households to qualify for MDPA funds. After that, we'll discuss the disbursement process and the compliance element for MDPA disbursements. Then, we will move on to cover some helpful reminders. Finally, we'll provide a glimpse into our Empowering Black Homeownership program, and we will conclude our webinar with a Q&A session. Introduction. The Federal Home Loan Bank system was chartered by Congress over 90 years ago during the Great Depression as a funding resource for home mortgage lenders. Today, lending institutions use federal home loan banks to help finance housing and economic development in their local communities. There are 11 federal home loan banks nationwide, and each operates as a private cooperative financial institution. We are a government-sponsored enterprise and are regulated by the Federal Housing Finance Agency, the same regulator of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. The Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco is a cooperative and is owned by member institutions headquartered in our district of Arizona, California, and Nevada. That means our member institutions are our shareholders and also our customers. Our members include commercial banks, saving institutions, credit unions, insurance companies, as well as non-depository community development financial institutions, or CDFIs. While we are a privately held company, we do have a public service mission. And it's because of that public service mission that we provide a variety of products and services to help support and benefit our members and the communities that they serve. This graphic demonstrates the products and services we provide to our members, which include grant programs and credit programs. We offer support for affordable housing through the Affordable Housing Program, or AHP General Funds, and AHP Nevada Targeted Fund. We also provide home ownership support through the AHP Set-Aside Program, also known as WISH, the bank's down payment assistance program for eligible first-time home buyers earning up to 80% of the AMI. We also provide other discretionary programs, such as the Empowering Black Home Ownership and, of course, the MDPA program. Additionally, we have AHEAD, our Economic Development Grant Program, and we provide outreach and program education, such as today's webinar, to help educate and benefit our members and the communities they serve. You can go to our website to learn more about our programs. Next, I will provide a summary of the MDPA program. The Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco offers several voluntary programs to further address housing needs in the communities we serve in our tri-state district, Arizona, California, and Nevada. The MDPA program is just one of the bank's voluntary, or also known as discretionary programs. The MDPA program provides matching grants to eligible first-time homebuyers. Grant funds may be used for down payment and closing costs. In May of 2023, Federal Home Loan Bank San Francisco launched one of the first of its kind test pilot MDPA program with a $10 million allocation. MDPA was designed to have a very streamlined documentation process, and thanks to the outpouring support of our participating member financial institutions, the MDPA program was very successful, and all funds were quickly committed. The Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco's Board of Directors approved a $20 million allocation for the 2024 MDPA program, up from $10 million in 2023. For the 2024 program year, there are a few guidelines our members should keep in mind. Federal Home Loan Bank San Francisco has increased the member limit, enabling each participating member financial institution to access a maximum of $2 million from the 2024 MDPA allocation, an increase from $1 million in 2023. New this year, up to $5 million of the $20 million allocation can be used to support home buyers earning between 120% AMI and 140% AMI. Members may submit disbursement requests for households on a first-come, first-served basis until the allocated funds have been exhausted. When funds begin to run low, the bank will send weekly updates to notify our members accordingly. The MDPA program provides matching grants to qualified first-time homebuyers. In order for a household to qualify for MDPA funds, they must have a minimum homebuyer contribution of $10,000, and they will be eligible for a grant of up to $50,000. Homebuyer contribution can come from different sources. It may be household savings and may include gift funds from individuals outside the transaction. Also, keep in mind that other assistance program grants or credits, concessions, from a party of the transaction, such as the seller or the lender, are allowed in the transaction, but they are not to be considered homebuyer contribution. The home buyer must be a first-time home buyer according to HUD's definition. This next bullet is very important. The MDPA program is intended for middle-income households, and the program does have income restriction. It is restricted to households that are earning just over 80% up to 140% AMI. Please note that the AMI is based on the purchase property address. The home buyer must also complete a home buying counseling program provided by an experienced organization. Finally, the purchased property must be the home buyer's primary residence, and it must be located within the bank's district of Arizona, California, or Nevada. Next, let's talk about program participation. Who can participate in the MDPA program? Any member of the Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco that is in good standing may participate in the MDPA program. MDPA participation materials are now available on our website. In order to participate, members will need to submit the Secure Portal Workspace setup request to the bank via email at outreach@FHLBSF.com. This form is found on our website in the MDPA Forms and Documents section. The member institution's designated portal users must review the portal user agreement prior to submitting the Secure Portal Workspace setup request to the bank. Please note that a new Secure Portal Workspace setup request is required even for members who participated in the inaugural 2023 program cycle. You can visit our website and access all MDPA content by going to Community Programs, Grant Programs, and selecting MDPA. As mentioned a moment ago, MDPA participation materials are now available on our website, and you can find them under Forms and Documents. While we're here, I'd like to highlight the excellent resources available to support our members. The How to Upload MDPA Documents PDF provides guidance for members to successfully upload documents and avoid resubmission. Another excellent resource is the MDPA Disbursement Flowchart, which provides an overview of the program, and we'll review this together later in the presentation. And with that, I'll hand it to Amparo.
Thanks, Bianca. In this part of the webinar, we will cover how a member determines the Household Income Eligibility Threshold Limit, or AMI limit. To arrive at the correct AMI limit adjusted for household size, we must determine the AMI set by HUD. This determination involves three key factors. First, we must identify the location, specifically the MSA or Metropolitan Statistical Area, corresponding to the homebuyer's purchase property address. You can determine the household's MSA using the website linked here in this slide. The second factor is the number of individuals in the household. Because income limits vary based on family size, we must know the number of individuals in a household. Finally, we need to make sure we use the correct year's income limits that are valid at the time the member reserves MDPA grant funds for the homebuyer. The 2024 HUD income limits are available on HUD's website. Next, we'll take a look at a HUD income limits example. When navigating to the HUD website linked in the previous slide, you will find an income table similar to what you see here. First, we need to identify the MSA for the household. Remember, this is based on the purchase property address, and the MSA for this household is Sacramento, Roseville, Arden Arcade of California. The second step is to make sure we're taking into consideration the number of individuals in the household. Finally, we want to identify the very low income figure for a household of this size. HUD's definition of very low income is actually 50% of AMI. So we'll use this figure and multiply it by 2 in order to determine what 100% AMI is for the area. So here, in this example, we'll take $58,950 times 2, resulting in $117,900 as the 100% AMI. We will continue covering income eligibility later in the presentation. We will review the MDPA disbursement process next. So, how does disbursement work? Well, there are 5 milestones from the homebuyer folder setup and reservation to closeout. The first step is the homebuyer folder setup and reservation. In this step, a participating member identifies and determines a homebuyer's income eligibility and then reserves MDPA program funds by requesting a homebuyer's folder setup for the individual purchase transaction. As a quick aside, some of our participating members work with community partners to identify eligible homebuyers in their local communities. We have no objection to this, but we want to remind our members that it is the member that ultimately determines a homebuyer's eligibility and reserves MDPA program funds for the homebuyer, not the nonprofit organization or the housing counseling partners. Now, we'll move on to step 2 of the disbursement process. After the member receives confirmation that the bank has created the homebuyer folder, the member then uploads a complete disbursement package within the homebuyer folder and notifies the bank by email. In step 3, once the bank receives a complete and satisfactory disbursement package, the bank disperses the MDPA grant to the member's settlements transaction account, usually within 10 business days, and then notifies the member accordingly. In step 4, the member uploads evidence of grant disbursement to the homebuyer within 30 days of loan closing. When the compliance document has been successfully uploaded, the member must notify the bank by email. In the last step of this process, the bank will notify the member that the transaction is closed upon receipt of satisfactory compliance documentation, and that completes the MDPA disbursement process. Before moving on, I would like to add that MDPA program funds are likely to be in high demand, as we learned during last year's pilot program year. So please be sure to plan accordingly. Now that we've covered the entire disbursement process workflow, let's revisit two critical steps. Understanding these steps is vital to ensuring a smooth and successful disbursement process. In the homebuyer folder setup and reservation step, funds are reserved on a first-come, first-served basis until all funds in the program year are fully exhausted. Only participating members may reserve funds. A homebuyer must be income qualified and in contract with a loan closing scheduled within 60 days. A member can request homebuyer folder setup by emailing outreach@FHLBSF.com. The email should include the 5 items listed here: the homebuyer's name, household income percent of AMI, the subsidy amount, which is a maximum of $50,000 per household, the scheduled loan closing date, and the purchase property state. As a reminder, the purchase property must be located in Arizona, California, or Nevada. If the home purchase transaction is canceled or closing is substantially delayed, please notify the bank promptly at outreach@FHLBSF.com using the email thread where the homebuyer folder was confirmed. Now, let's review the disbursement request process step. For the disbursement request, the member will submit to us a package of required documents, and the documents are all listed here on this slide. Please note that the member submits the household's disbursement documentation before each individual household closes escrow. If there's any deficiency or issue with the documentation, it must be cured promptly to ensure timely approval and dispersal of MDPA grant funds. As a reminder, we intend to disperse the MDPA grant funds to the member within 10 business days upon receipt of a complete and satisfactory disbursement package. Now, let's move on and review our MDPA certification and disbursement request, or CDR form. The MDPA CDR form asks the member and the homebuyer to certify that the disbursement request submitted meets all program requirements. And specifically, it certifies the purchase property address is located in Arizona, California, or Nevada. The member's authorization section must be signed by an authorized signer on file with the Federal Home Loan Bank of San Francisco. Here, you can see what the form looks like. We also require the MDPA CDR Attachment 1 form. This is an Excel form, and we've just published a new version on our website. Please be sure to use the latest version, as the old version will no longer be accepted. To highlight a few key features of the form, notice there's a progress bar at the top to guide you and tell you when the form is 100% complete. The form must be 100% complete prior to submission. Most importantly, this form is a summary of the critical transaction details. Please be sure the information on this form is consistent with the information found in the backup documentation being provided, such as the Fannie Mae Form 1008, the Fannie Mae Form 1003, and the closing disclosure. As mentioned earlier, the homebuyer must complete Homebuyer Counseling to receive an MDPA grant. and that counseling session must be completed before loan closing. The Homebuyer Counseling Program should be an experienced organization, and we do require a copy of the Certificate of Completion to be included in the disbursement request package. As mentioned earlier, we require 2 Fannie Mae forms to be included with the disbursement request package: the Fannie Mae Form 1008 or equivalent, and the Fannie Mae Form 1003 or equivalent. Let's review the information we look to confirm on these forms. First, we must verify that the purchased property will be occupied by the home buyer and used as a primary residence. Second, we must verify the household's income eligibility. For the MDPA program, the bank will accept the income calculations the first mortgage lender used, and no separate calculation is required. The mortgage lender's Fannie Mae Form 1008 must be submitted to verify the homebuyer's income eligibility. Income qualification is based on the total borrower income on the Fannie Mae Form 1008 and the AMI adjusted for household size. Lastly, we look to confirm the housing expense to income and debt to income ratios found on these forms. Ultimately, our goal is to ensure that the mortgage loan is affordable to the MDPA assisted homebuyers and that they are set up for success in home ownership. One last important reminder before moving on: the information reported on these forms should be consistent across all documentation submitted to the bank. For example, the total income reported on Form 1008 should match the total income reported on Form 1003. Moving along, we require a copy of the preliminary closing disclosure for the home purchase transaction. Please note, we cannot accept the loan estimate. The disbursement date reported on the preliminary closing disclosure must be within 60 days from the date of the homebuyer folder setup and reservation. There are a few key details we look for on this form. First, the homebuyer's contribution must be at least $10,000 and may come from savings or gifted funds. Second, the closing costs should be customary and reasonable. Third, the total MDPA grant amount must be evident. And finally, the amount of cash back to the homebuyer cannot be excessive. Now let's review a few essential points about document submission. Members must submit program documents electronically via the bank's secure portal. It's critical to redact all personal identifying information or PII on those documents. Please redact only the first 5 digits, but please leave the last 4 digits of any Social Security numbers and bank account numbers. One final point I want to mention about document submission: on our website, we have a page of instructions to show you how to upload the documents to the bank's secure portal. If you have any questions on the process of uploading documents for an MDPA disbursement request, we highly encourage you to visit this page prior to submission. As a reminder, when an email is sent to the bank to request a home buyer folder setup and reservation, we do our best to respond within 24 to 48 hours. But please note, this is not an automated system. We must review and respond to each individual request individually. So we appreciate your patience during peak times such as now during the start of the program year. Now, let's move on to the funds disbursement process step. The bank requires a minimum of 10 business days to process and disperse MDPA grant funds. Please consider this processing timeframe when scheduling a loan closing date for your home buyers. Members will receive a notification of the approved MDPA disbursement via email. The notification email will include the product name, the member and homebuyer names, and the transaction amount. The bank disperses the MDPA grant funds directly to the member's settlement transaction account. The member then delivers the MDPA grant funds to the escrow company. Now, I'll hand it off to Cindy to cover compliance.
Thank you, Amparo. Let's discuss the compliance step of the disbursement process. After the member receives the grant funds from the bank, the member may disburse the funds to the homebuyer for escrow closing. Within 30 days after loan closing, the member must submit evidence of grant disbursement to the homebuyer via the bank's secure portal. The proof of disbursement may be an outgoing wire confirmation or a funding check copy showing the funds going to the escrow company for the benefit of the homebuyer. If a member does not disburse the grant funds to the homebuyer within 60 days from the date the bank funded the grant, perhaps due to a cancellation of the home purchase, the member must return the funds to the bank within 15 days after the 60-day deadline. After the bank reviews and determines the evidence of disbursement is acceptable, the member will receive an email notification confirming the compliance documentation is satisfactory, and then the disbursement transaction is officially closed. Now, let's go over a few helpful reminders. Homebuyer folder setup or funds reservation requests are accepted on a first-come, first-served basis until program funds are exhausted. Reminder that the member should not request funds or a homebuyer folder setup for a homebuyer until that homebuyer has been income qualified and is in escrow for a home purchase with closing scheduled within 60 days. Disbursement requests. A complete disbursement request package must be submitted to the bank at least 10 business days prior to the scheduled loan closing date. Reminder that our goal is to complete our review of a disbursement request and disburse the grant funds to the member so that the funds are available for escrow closing. So it is important for us to receive the complete request package at least 10 business days before loan closing to allow ample time for processing. Income eligibility. To be eligible for the MDPA program, household income must be between 80.01% to 140% AMI. Again, the AMI is based on the MSA of the purchased property address. Cash back to the homebuyer at closing is allowed, but the amount cannot be excessive. Return of grant funds. If the member does not disburse the grant funds to the homebuyer within 60 days from the date the bank funded the grant, the member must return the funds to the bank within 15 days. Non-arm's length transactions, such as homebuyers purchasing a home from their parents, are not eligible for the MDPA program. Now, I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about another grant program our bank offers, the Empowering Black Homeownership Program, which supports housing counseling agencies working with aspiring home buyers achieve their dream of home ownership. The Empowering Black Homeownership, or EBH program, was first launched in 2022 as one of the bank's initiatives to advance racial equity in home ownership and narrow the Black homeownership and wealth gaps. The program provides matching grants through our member institutions to eligible HUD-approved housing counseling agencies to help expand their operational capacity in serving more aspiring home buyers in communities of color. In September last year, our bank renewed the EBH program and allocated $2 million in funding for the 2023 to 2024 program year. This allocation is double the amount that was allocated in 2022. As of May, about $1 million of the $2 million allocation is still available. Under the grant program, member donations to eligible housing counseling agencies are matched dollar for dollar up to the program limit of $125,000 per member. To request a matching contribution, members may complete and submit a program certification and disbursement request form to the bank. Note that the total contribution requested must be a minimum of $10,000 up to $125,000 per member. The contribution recipient must be a HUD-approved housing counseling agency located in our tri-state district of Arizona, California, and Nevada. Included on page 4 of the certification and disbursement request form is a list of pre-approved housing counseling agencies that our members can support through this grant program. We strongly encourage our members to work with these and other housing counseling agencies to identify home buyers that can benefit from the MDPA program.